Back to the Sports Shuffle. It's been a little while. Off-season tends to slow down for us.
We remembered where the buttons were.
But yeah, it took a few minutes. We've had headphone problems. We've had common sense problems. We've talked about all of America's problems. And now we're here to talk about football because that's what we do best. And that is, of course, the we of Flying Ryan Gilchrist, myself, and as always,
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin in the WNBA free zone.
Yeah, if you're here to hear about WNBA or NBA or Olympic basketball or really anything that's not football, you're in the wrong place.
Just because it's the summertime when it's WNBA this year. And of course, extra LeBron, and you had the whole LeBron saga, and it is just absolutely insanity, as I'm sure you'll agree. And don't worry, we're not doing a deep dive into this with how much Bronny James was paid. Just that whole insane sequence.
Anyways, that's enough NBA talk for a lifetime.
Yep.
We're going to talk today about the AFC, and we're going to start projecting teams, projecting divisions. We're not going to do too deep of a dive on players. I mean, we have 2 weeks until our 16-team draft. 2 weeks and a couple hours. Our 10-team draft's actually 13 days away. So draft season's coming up, so we got to ramp up in high gear. We'll get a little more in-depth with some of these players next week.
Unlike when I was commissioner and I decided, it would be really great if we had both drafts on the same night until you actually try to do that.
It's not so bad if they're both 10-team leagues, but the 16-team league on Sleeper is a lot faster than the 16-team league was on Yahoo. It cuts about 30 minutes off, but it's still a very, very long draft. We will live stream both of those once again this year. We'll do some mock drafts. I know Zach, who is our defending champion in the 16-team league, has already asked if we have any mock drafts set up. So I'm sure we'll get him on for at least a mock draft, maybe a little mayhem mock draft. We feel like doing that way. But we're going to do an AFC preview, which is going to be this show. We're going to do an NFC preview either later tonight or Monday, depending on how we feel and how much time this actually takes. Next week, we're going to start ramping it up. And then the week after, hopefully no hurricanes in the area, because right now it looks like it's going to be good. And that's the only thing that can really throw us off our fantasy week schedule. But the week after, we'll be here pretty much every night doing something.
Yeah, because we weren't planning like last week, but of course, Mother Nature has other plans. Because you don't want to try live streaming when you have a storm zipping on by. Because everybody is like using just the heck out of the internet and just absolutely overloading everything. That's like you go to the weather site. Oh, let me check out the radar. I'm sorry, this radar site is not available because there's too much traffic right now.
Yeah, Debbie coming by, and we were actually in Disney for the 4 days before it actually came back. We came back right before it peaked in our area. For those of you who do not know, Joel is up in the Tampa area. I'm down a little further south around Sarasota, Bradenton, Manatee County, which actually was one of the worst spots in Florida to get hit with the rain. My area, not so bad, but definitely people in the area that had some.
Like Sarasota is still flooded. It's
still flooded. Some of them still rising. So definitely thoughts out to everybody who was affected. That storm finally leaving the Carolinas, where it's made a big mess. So we're going to hope that we get a nice little break from the intense, worrisome weather. It looks like at least the next couple of weeks it's not going to be a Florida problem as of now. And that'll let us get through our fantasy drafts, and then we'll get really close to the season. Hopefully no more risky, threatening storms to throw us off track. But as Joel said, we were supposed to do this last week. Weather and some vacation for me got in the way. We were actually supposed to start this early in the week, but as you can maybe hear, I'm a little stuffed up. It was a lot worse on Wednesday, sitting in the throat. So we are starting today, and we're going to start with the AFC. And Joel, which AFC division do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about one of the exciting ones, or do you just want to get the AFC West out of the way where we all know what's going to happen?
Let's get the AFC West out of the way. Let's
all right.
do that.
AFC West, the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, the heavy favorites to win that division. Denver Broncos drafting Bo Nix, hopefully the quarterback of the future for them. The Raiders, the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh now looking to make the turn, but they lost Keenan Allen and Mike Williams.
And Austin Eckler.
Yeah, Austin Eckler going. Like, they've had a lot of change out in Los Angeles with the Chargers and the Raiders. We'll see what they are. We'll talk about our projections here in a minute, but any reason to doubt the Kansas City Chiefs are just going to dominate the division once again?
Yeah, I know that everybody looks at the schedule, and you look at the schedule and you definitely throw that in the face of anybody. You definitely have the mythos of once again 3 time back to back to back, and how hard that is. But if there's anybody that can do it, that would be Pat Mahomes. And then the Chiefs, of course, snagged the one of the good number 1 picks with Worthy, that everyone was kind of surprised that the Bills didn't pick, but they end up getting a little bit of help, and we're not sure what's going to happen with Rashid Rice, as you really haven't heard anything yet. Some talk maybe that's not going to happen until next season. So it looks like they might have all of the weapons ready to repeat. So you've got to put the Chiefs on top. I mean, you look at all of these teams, and I mean, you got Justin Herbert with the foot injury and the question there. Once again, all of the departures. Las Vegas, I know Pierce is the coach, he's the man, and just the Broncos and their absolute dumpster fire of a team. But I mean, it's hard not putting the Chiefs first.
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs first. I got them at 13-4. I went through all mine on playoffpredictors.com, so I actually have records.
I still have to do that.
Joel will do that in the near future, but for me, I just like going through them and actually seeing matchup by matchup. I've got the Chiefs winning this division by about Thanksgiving. It looks like Chiefs 13-4. I've got the Broncos in second at 5-12.
Okay.
Chargers 4-13, Las Vegas Raiders 3-14. I don't think it's starting to remind me of the AFC East when the Patriots just started destroying people, where it seemed like the 3 teams were trying to keep their cap hits down, be as competitive as they can for as cheaply as they can, and keep their fan bases buying stuff in the mix, but they're not really a contender. That's what the entire AFC West feels like outside of Kansas City right now.
Okay, I actually tend to disagree with that a little bit. I think Chiefs, of course, first. I think the Chargers are going to be second, just solely based on the Harbaugh injection and all that's going to give to the team. Plus, you also have the very easy schedule, and I think that's going to definitely help the Chargers. So you kind of have the Harbaugh bias, and you have the easy schedule. And the Raiders are always going to be the Raiders, but I think they're going to be third. And I just don't think the Broncos recover from this year. I mean, that was just absolutely brutal, and I think they're dead last.
I mean, I'm not far off because it's one game different could put the Broncos from second to third or fourth, depending on when that one game is. I don't see a way the Chiefs don't win the division. That's the end of it. I know people say every year we've got a team that goes worst to first. It's not coming from this division.
And just memo to the Raiders: don't tease Mahomes with the Kermit thing. That's going to come back to bite you in the where.
Yeah, it probably will. All right, let's go to the AFC South. AFC South, with a surprise team of last season, came out of the Houston Texans behind C.J. Stroud, going in, winning a playoff game after they were projected to be one of the worst teams in football. So there's hope for you Patriots fans who are down there on that bottom of that list this year. Really tight race between the Colts and Jaguars to get that final spot, with the Titans still somewhere in that mix as well. All of these teams were kind of middle of the pack, with the Texans separating themselves late. I believe Jacksonville lost the last week of the season to miss the playoffs and get the Steelers into the playoffs. So I expect that division to be very tight for the playoff on the wild card side of things, for that 6-7 type of seed. Joel, who do you got winning that division, though? AFC South.
I know the Texans are going to have the target on them, that all of a sudden they were kind of the stealth team that surprised everybody this year, and now people are going to be gunning for them this year. But I still think, especially with the addition of Stephon Diggs to the locker room, even though I know he's just a little bit of a diva, I think that's just going to make that team that much more dangerous for Stroud to have so many weapons available, as it's just you can't go against the Texans. And just the Colts, I know, just dangerous themselves, but unproven. Got to watch out for those injuries. So, but I think the Colts are the second best team, so I have them number 2. And I've got the Titans number 3 because of the Calvin Ridley acquisition, even though I know they wildly overpaid for him. big time, but I think he's going to help bolster them and give them some more weapons. And they need a superstar, especially with Derrick Henry flying the coop from there. Just been there for such a long time. Now it's going to just be very hard, I think, for Tennessee fans to figure out, well, who do we cheer for now? And just because they've been so disappointing of recent, I have the Jags last because you had all this expectations for them. Now Calvin Ridley is gone. He's with Tennessee. And I know it was a little bit of a freak injury when you have a lineman step on Trevor Lawrence, and that absolutely just derailed the entire season. But the Jaguars just supposed to be the super team, and just for some reason, they tend to, every time they progress, they have equal regression. And I just think they're headed for a bad place this year. It's just like people are building them up, building them up, building them up, and just late, they just don't show up.
Yeah. So is this a Titans in third? Is that a encouraging sign for them with Will Levis this year, or do you think he's just going to be okay and the Jags going to be that much worse?
I just think the Jags are going to be that much worse than the Titans. They can't really get any worse than this year. And I just think the Jaguars are headed for a bad place. So that's why I have the Titans third, as just the Jaguars continue to disappoint until they show me otherwise.
I mean, the Jags, I'm looking at their schedule. They start with the Dolphins, the Browns, the Bills, the Texans. All four playoff teams from last year. Then a divisional matchup with the Colts, the Bears, the Patriots. That gets a little bit easier. But then it's Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions going into the Week 12 bye. There's a lot of tough games in there. For what it's worth, I have the Texans winning that division 12-5. I think they kind of run away with it. I think the talent is going to win out there. Stephon Diggs, I don't think he's going to be a great receiver if you're looking at a fantasy point of view. I don't think he's going to be the number one.
So you take a dart throw on him later?
Where you're going to have to draft him, he's not worth the dart throw. I'd rather take Tank Dell around later, or at about the same spot, Nico Collins, who should be the number one. They paid him like the number one. I think this is going to be a very good offense overall. I mean, Joe Mixon's there now.
Do you think it's a case?
Stephon Diggs is your number 3 receiver, you're going to be all right.
In case of maybe too many mouths to feed?
I mean, we've seen it before where a team will have 3 good wide receivers and somebody usually is the odd man out. It could be kind of like San Francisco if you put Kittle as a third wide receiver as opposed to, a wide receiver, where you're going to have good weeks from McCaffrey. You're going to have good weeks from Ayuk. You're going to have good weeks from Samuel and Kittle, but usually one of those is going to have a bad week. And which one is which, we don't necessarily know. I think Houston's going to be a lot in that same boat. I think more often than not, it's going to be Diggs on the outside looking in, but I think he's going to have 4 or 5 performances where you're going to be like, wow, he's still very, very good, but he is on the wrong side of 30, and he's getting a little bit older. But all that being said, I've got the Texans at 12-5, winning that division, and I have the Jags at 9-8. Squeaking into the 7 seed of the playoffs. I think they struggle in that first stretch of games, start 0-4 because they're outclassed by the competition, but their schedule gets easier in the second half. They can pull an upset here or there if they do well enough in that division. 9-8 is not out of the question. I mean, they have 4 games against the Colts and the Titans. I mentioned Bears, Patriots. That should be 6 wins, or at least 5 of them, hopefully for their sake. And then I've got the Colts at 8-9. I think this is going to work more like Anthony Richardson's true rookie year. He only played about 3.5 games last year before going out with a shoulder injury. I think you're going to see some really, really good highs, but you're going to see some lows where he struggles. And I think 8-9, I think you're encouraged as a Colts fan if you see him come out, play a whole season healthy, put up some good numbers, and keep this team in playoff contention. 8-9, have him as the 9 seed in the conference. And in last, I've got the Titans. I just don't see Will Levis being that guy. They lost Derrick Henry. Is Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears good enough to replace them? I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins already out with a knee injury. We'll see how long that affects him. Calvin Ridley, you mentioned, is being added, but he wasn't great with Jacksonville last year. His 2 best games were against Tennessee. So I just don't know how it's going to work out for them. I've got both the Texans and the Jaguars in the playoffs. I got the Chiefs as the 3 seed for what it's worth. Texans as the 4, Jaguars as the 7. And let's go to the AFC East because I think the AFC North is the most interesting division in the AFC. AFC East, the Bills off their 4th consecutive division championship and their 2nd wide right heartbreak in franchise history. That made me roll around on the floor giggling as a Dolphins fan.
Somebody put a curse on the Bills sometime.
They're just not a winning team. At the end of the day, they can be a good team. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl just because of their makeup right now. They don't have that killer instinct in the playoffs. Dolphins, they made the playoffs last year, had to go into a Frostbite Bowl and lose to the Chiefs, who eventually won the Super Bowl. So we'll see. They did sign Tua to a long-term deal, 4 years, $212 million, possibly an overpay.
The money.
Yeah. Jets, no more Zach Wilson, but Aaron Rodgers coming back. He's on the wrong side of 40, but coming back off the Achilles. If he is what he was 2 years ago.
Skipping camp and just shrugging off the fines because he has the money.
Yeah, we'll see what he is coming off the Achilles injury. He hasn't played in basically 2 years, and his last year of full play, it was his worst year in his history. Then the Patriots, they're projected to be the favorites for the number 1 pick. So this is not a team that's projected to be very good. There's already some concern that Drake May is being beat out by Joe Milton, who was also drafted this year. I think the New England Patriots are probably the safest bet for one of the worst teams in football, and they're in a division where realistically the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets could be very, very good teams, especially if Aaron Rodgers goes back to what he was, and the Bills can find wide receiver help in their room, which looks a little thin as of now. So, Joel, what do you got in this division?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are going to just look to Josh Allen and try to put the Bills up there as the number 1 seed because of Josh Allen. But I can't do it this year because his wide receiver room has been totally, completely revamped and redone. Gabe Davis is gone. Stephon Diggs is gone. They passed, of course, on Worthy in the first round. They ended up going to 2 receivers in the second round. And my one question is, who does he have to throw to? And he's going to have to pass it to himself in some cases. And what about that O-line? So I don't know. I think the Bills are headed for a bit of a tumble this year. I've have the Dolphins, your fish, on top. I know there's a lot of challenges and questions to the Dolphins' legitimacy just because of the whole, and I know you're going to roll your eyes with the whole winning record and teams with the winning record thing, but I think the Dolphins tend to have the best offense. They just have to be careful with it. This year, they have all the concerns for Tua Tagovailoa with his health and how many times he's been knocked around. They've got to be very, 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 very careful with that. But I think they're the best offense out of the whole kit and caboodle with this division. Jets, it's not that I end up really having all that much faith in Aaron Rodgers and the return of Aaron Rodgers to the NFL, but yeah, I think he has more weapons than Josh Allen does, and he has more of a chip on his shoulder. Plus, I don't think they're as cursed as the Bills are, just for some reason. Just yike. And yeah, the Patriots, the Patriots are the Patriots. So I mean, yeah, that everybody who thought that they were getting Brandon Ayuk, it's like yoink. Yeah, no, not happening. Sorry, I just tend to sort of feel like he's either going to go to Steelers for all the money or he's staying in San Fran, and that's the smart play to do. So Dolphins finish first. I think they can do it again, and hopefully they can beat some quality teams this time and shut everybody up, other than just the close win with Dallas the one time last year. And yeah, Jets. Like I said, it's not that I have that much faith in Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's got a better, cadre of weapons around him than the Bills do, and that's a better combo. And Patriots are just, I mean, I can't even put the Patriots in third place. So it's Dolphins, Jets, Bills, and Patriots, and I agree that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I've got the Dolphins absolutely running away with the division at 14-3. You might think, well, they don't beat good teams. They had that winning record problem last year. Well, let's see. Let's look at their schedule. Jacksonville to start. Buffalo on a short week going to Miami. I think Buffalo to start the season is going to really have an identity crisis figuring out this offense. As Joel said, no wide receivers that are really established. Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, their highly drafted rookie. Somebody's going to have to step up. Dalton Kincaid, second-year tight end. we'll see. But not to
The
mention their
the
defense
Bills
got gashed.
the Bills are like when they're the scene in Major League. Who are these freaking guys?
Yeah, I just think at the start of the season they're going to really struggle to get it together, and they're going to try and make a charge late. We'll see how that goes. But then Seattle, Tennessee, at New England. Bills are probably the most losable game in that, and that's not super tough. After the bye, you've got the Colts, you've got the Cardinals, you've got the Bills in Buffalo, which I do have the Dolphins losing. I think by then Buffalo figures it out. Buffalo has Miami's number a little bit, especially on the road. Then Rams, Raiders, Patriots, and then on Thanksgiving you have the Packers. Like, you haven't played the Jets, who could be very good. You still have, after Thanksgiving, it gets tough, though. Packers, Jets, Texans, 49ers, Browns, Jets. I think the Dolphins go 3-3 in that stretch. I've got them at 14-3. I just think they dominate that early schedule where it is a little bit weaker. They drop one. I've got them losing to the Texans, the Bills, and to the 49ers, but they could absolutely lose to the Packers, who are one of the hottest picks for a deep run. The Browns made the playoffs last year. If Aaron Rodgers is good, they can make a rebound. But I've got them at 14-3. I've got the Bills second in this division at 8-9. Again, I think they start off fairly slowly. I actually have them losing the first week to the Cardinals, and I have them at 1-4 through week 5. So they have to rebound. They eventually get it going, but they also still have to play the Chiefs and the 49ers and the Lions down the line. I think it's just going to be too difficult of a schedule with how much they've lost specifically on the defensive side, but not to mention that receiving game. Josh Allen already talking about running less. So I think they are 8-9 in the second place. I've got the Jets at 6-11, and a lot of that's twofold. One, I didn't think Aaron Rodgers was going to be the savior last year because he was so bad 2 years ago. He got hurt after 4 plays and didn't play. Now he's 2 years removed from his worst year of his career. He's not in training camp. He's still a weird dude doing weird things. And we saw last year when he went out how this team mentally imploded. That's a weak coaching staff. I don't think it's a very good staff. And I think Robert Saleh is one of the most likely guys to get fired in this season, possibly the first and maybe only coach to get fired during the season, especially if they go 6-11. And then last place in the conference, last place in the division, the New England Patriots, 2-15. They'll find 2 wins somewhere. Most teams pretty much of all time have found at least one. I do think they find a way to get at least 2 wins. None in the division, but they will find a way. All right, and then we move to the last division, the most competitive division, the AFC North. The Ravens made a run to the AFC Championship game. The Steelers and Browns both made the playoffs. The Bengals were 9-8 with Joe Burrow missing about half the season. This should be a fun division. All of these teams really got a little bit better from top to bottom. The Bengals just getting Burrow back is going to be an improvement. Henry to the Ravens. The Browns should be getting healthier, eventually getting Nick Chubb back from injury. And then the upgraded quarterback over Kenny Pickett, whether it is Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, it's going to be better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Joel, who do you got in the AFC North?
It's hard going against the Ravens, especially with some firepower addition of one Derrick Henry to the Ravens, as that just absolutely makes them fearsome on defense, and now even more fearsome on offense. Is definitely one of the biggest criticisms in that championship game was you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, as one of the most criticisms for that game was what happened to the home run. So the answer to that would be one Derrick Henry. So hopefully they just take forward the lessons and just decide to go ahead and just maybe run more, especially if they are in the same situation in the same game. Sorry, my whole monitor just decided to flick on and then flick off. Yay, fun. Anywho, so once again, that's the Ravens. Then I think the Bengals are definitely back if they can just avoid the whole Burrow injury bug, whatever it was last year that definitely hampered the Bengals in fantasy and in reality big time. But I think they're on a mission, and you definitely have a potential for the Ravens and the Bengals to both get into the playoffs. The Browns, I know they were definitely surprised everybody with Flacco coming off of the couch and just doing amazing things. They have so many quarterbacks, but I don't know. Other than that, just a lot of players with a lot of questions, and I've got to put them third. So Ravens 1, Bengals 2, Browns 3, and yeah, that just means you got to put the Steelers fourth because I know they end up having a really good offseason as they end up getting, of course, Justin Fields and then Russell Wilson literally for peanuts from the Broncos. But you've got one quarterback can be a major diva. Mike Tomlin hopefully will set him straight or has set him straight. And then, yeah, you've got George Pickens. So you've got diva quarterback, diva wide receiver. Should be interesting. Deontay Johnson, of course, going to the Panthers. So that's why they're probably looking to add Brandon Ayuk if he decides to go there. But my money is on him just sort of trying to ramp up more money for himself via his agent and staying in San Fran as his best value is to stay there as Steelers might be backing up the Brinks truck, but if he wants to get the Lombardi, I think he really needs to stay in San Francisco. So that's Ravens 1, Bengals 2, Browns 3. I know that they had a good season last season. I'm just not really buying it. And Steelers, just every time you turn around, you're trying to figure out how did they get in the playoffs? How did they win? How did Tomlin win that game again? Just as over 500 record. I just think that mojo sort of tends to go south this year. And Steelers, sorry to say, you're last.
All right. I have the Bengals winning this division. They're going worst to first, which is the easy pick for that worst to first. The team does it every year. But the Bengals with the healthy Joe Burrow, healthy Jamar Chase, yes, that running game with Zach Moss and Brown might be a little bit different. I think it's going to be just fine. That defense just needs to step up a little. I got them going 14-3, winning this division, going in as the 2 seed in the AFC. I've got the Ravens at 12-5 going in as the top wild card team. And I think Derrick Henry's going to have a monster season. But at the end of the day, you still have a little bit of a question, like, how is this passing game going to look? The Ravens did lose a couple pieces on the defensive side of things, and can Lamar Jackson stay healthy? Every year stayed healthy. They've had a good deep playoff run, but he has been injured a lot of the time. I've got the Browns still going 11-6. This defense is just absolutely ridiculous. That's going to lead them to a good number of wins on its own. I think Deshaun Watson gets back a little bit more closer to what he was when he was with Houston. Hopefully for his sake in his career, it does turn around, but I know there's a lot of people rooting against him for some all the off the field stuff. And I've got the Steelers at 8-9, which means Mike Tomlin's first losing season. And I think a lot of it is just they're going to be faced with a fairly difficult schedule in a very difficult division. And I kind of think they're going to play that quarterback back and forth BS between Fields and Wilson. If you want a better quarterback, you're going to play Russell Wilson. If you want a better football player, you're going to play Justin Fields. And they really got to decide what they want at that position. Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator, I think would be better for Justin Fields, but I think they're going to give Wilson the first crack at it and then maybe go back and forth from there.
Yeah, because the Steelers just had so many games, you just ask yourself, how the hell did they win that game? Seriously.
They pulled a lot out of their backside. So, all right, that is our quick AFC preview. We will do the NFC probably tonight, but maybe not till Monday. And again, we'll go more into the fantasy depth options. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of good players in the AFC, Henry switching teams. You've got the multi-headed running back terror out of Miami, a lot of good wide receivers. So we'll get to all of that another time. So for the AFC preview, that's going to wrap it up. I am Flying Ryan Ryan along with
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verone with a quick final thought blast as I end up seeing a meme that apparently for Tyreek Hill, his 99 ratings is how many kids he has.
I've got a stat of the day, if you would like. Tyreek Hill averages 800 receiving yards per child birthed. Stat of the day. And with that, we go.